Hello, Internet friends. My name is Rich. Thanks so much for joining me today on the Toy Alliance YouTube channel. I want to do a video. This is a video I've wanted to do for a while. Basically, it's going to be my top 3 vintage Star Wars thrift store finds. Obviously, if I have any credibility as a YouTuber whatsoever, I'll come up with a much more snappy title for this video. Okay, so here we go. My top 3 vintage Star Wars thrift store finds. At number 3, we have something that I just found the other day, and that is these 3 Star Wars coloring books. All of these items actually were found at a chain of thrift stores here in Canada, possibly in the US as well. I don't know, called Value Village. Now, Value Village, if they do think something is collectible and worth money, they will put it behind their super mysterious glass case. However, all the things that we're going to be looking at within the general population of the thrift store prison. So these coloring books, I found them in the kids book section at Value Village. Usually when I go to Value Village, I check the action figures. I check the VHS and the DVD and Blu-rays, and then I check the books. So I was leaving and I realized I hadn't checked the kids book. Did a quick flyby and I saw these coloring books. And at first I thought, are they vintage? They look vintage. And yes, they are vintage. There were 4 of them. Here's one with Han Solo oddly cut from the cover. Here is the other one. Again, with Han kind of cut from the cover, but there's a good one of Luke being a backseat driver. Here's one with just R2, which I'm pretty sure I had as a kid. This one, the price tag is on it, and someone tried to peel it off. I don't mind that at all. I think that's kind of cool when you can see the price tag. And this last one is Luke fixing R2, or fixing C-3PO's elbow. What is super cool about these, other than it's just vintage Star Wars, they are all uncolored, if you can believe that. Very simple yet cool, fun artwork. I definitely remember coloring that page as a kid. Or I'm insane. Yeah, so each and every one of these, there is no coloring marks on them at all. At all. I was very excited about that. I think I might try to frame them. It was kind of a cool shot. No, or artwork. The artwork is very crude, but I still love it, no matter what. I remember this page of those 3 Tusken Raiders. I swear to you, I remember it. I don't know what's going on there. But yeah, look at that. No coloring at all. So obviously someone found these in a basement or, I don't know, in a box under their bed or something. Some birthday gifts they forgot to give out years and years ago. And that's a cool shot. I don't believe this ever happened in the movie. Yeah, and they just gave them to Value Village. They cost $1.29 each. It's a very boring picture to color, but still cool. $1.29 each, which is probably, wait a minute, we've seen that picture before, which is probably overpriced for a used coloring book at a thrift store. But for vintage Star Wars coloring books, I think $1.29 was a great price. And obviously, when they put these out, they didn't realize these were vintage coloring books. So that's on Value Village. What also is kind of cool about these is here's the front of one. And here is the back, which is in French. So I suspect these were distributed in Canada, where usually we have bilingual labeling and whatnot. So there you go, guys. Number 3 on my thrift store finds are the super cool, awesome Star Wars coloring books that have not been colored. Okay, and at number 2 on my list is the Sand Speeder. Or, sorry, the Land Speeder. I just filmed this entire segment calling it the Sand Speeder and had to delete it. The Land Speeder, Luke's Land Speeder to be exact. This was actually in a little plastic bag hanging with the action figures, and it cost, I believe, under $4.
I believe this was like 3 something maybe. Anyway, it was less than $5, and it is a complete land speeder. All the stickers are still on, as you can see. The windshield is the only thing not great on it. It's obviously going yellow. Looks like a pair of Ray-Ban sunglasses. And there's a crack in the windshield. So Luke, much like myself, ignored that little chip in his windshield until it became a crack. That's really the only thing that's not in good shape. The spring-loaded mechanism that gives it the appearance that it's hovering still works. There's a little shift that you use for that. However, that's not why this is on the list. The land speeder was one of my favorite Star Wars vehicles, mainly because of how it rolled so well across my kitchen floor back in the day. The reason why this is number 2 is when I got it home, I realized there was something inside of it rattling, because whenever I would shake it, because I shake all my toys, I would hear a little rattling. So I just figured a little piece of plastic broke off inside. However, I wanted to check under the hood to check to see if the sticker was there. And so I popped the hood. Not the hood. Yeah, the hood. Apparently I don't know my cards very well. And yes, the sticker was still there. What was really amazing, however, was inside I found what was making the rattling sound, and that was not the whole Jawa, but this Jawa blaster, which is actually one of the harder Star Wars weapons to find, because only the Jawa came with this particular blaster. And it just so happened I had a Jawa that needed a blaster. So not only did I get the land speeder for under a $5, it also had a very hard to find vintage weapon inside the hood. So that made it a doubly good find, and that's why this is number 2 on my list. Oddly enough, I also found like a vinyl cape for a Jawa, but I figured that was worthless and I just threw it out. And finally, my number 1 vintage Star Wars thrift store find. It is this Power of the Force Last 17 Luke Skywalker in Stormtrooper disguise. The arms and legs are kind of getting discolored. It didn't come with his helmet or the blaster. I would say obviously. However, it's still a Final 17 figure, and he was in a little plastic bag with a bunch of other figures. So this probably cost less than $3 for that bag of figures. Funny story, this was a couple of years ago when I found this guy. All of those Final 17 have gone up in value since then. I was looking through the figures and I saw him in this bag with a few other figures. And I knew it was a vintage Star Wars figure, but I didn't know he existed at the time. I'm ashamed to say, well, I'm not really ashamed to say. There are definitely things I'm ashamed to say, but this isn't really one of them. I'm slightly embarrassed as a Star Wars toy collector. I didn't realize a whole lot about the Final 17. I knew a little bit about it, and I definitely was aware of a lot of the figures. But this particular Luke in Stormtrooper disguise, I just was not on my radar. So all I knew is that it was a vintage Star Wars figure, and that it was Luke in a Stormtrooper disguise. And it wasn't until much later I sort of researched about the Final 17. And if you don't know, the Final 17 were the last, I believe, 17 figures that were released. They were actually a new line of figures. They were on Power of the Force cards. It was going to be sort of a new wave of Star Wars figures, which would have figures based on all 3 movies, even though most of them were still Return of the Jedi. And Luke in Stormtrooper disguise was one of them. Like I said, he should have a Stormtrooper blaster and a helmet, which I don't have and are super, super expensive. Maybe I'll buy another sand speeder that has them inside of it, like the Jawa blaster. But regardless, this was my first Final 17 figure that I had. Maybe I had some as a kid. I don't think I did. I probably would remember that. But I was still super stoked to find him. And because Luke is my favorite Star Wars character, I've decided after many years, it's cool that I have another. I have the Endor Luke Final 17 figure as well. I can say I have all of the vintage Luke figures at least. So yeah, very, very cool figure. A lot of people will do a custom where they take, if they have an extra one of these, and they put a Han head so they can have Luke and Han. By the way, that head sculpt is awful. That looks like Luke and Han had a baby, and this is what, and they were cousins, and this is what the baby looked like. So, which, it's a shame because this figure would have come out after Return of the Jedi, and this is probably the worst Luke head, even though it's one of the last vintage Luke figures that were made. Irregardless, I'm still super happy that I do have this guy, and again. He was just in a bag of random figures at Value Village for, less than 2 toonies. So there you go, guys. Just a quick little look at my top 3 vintage Star Wars thrift store finds. It is possible to still find some of these. You just have to get your hands dirty and dig around disgusting bins where the fear of bed bugs is always prevalent. So clearly well worth it. All right, guys, thank you so much. I hope you enjoyed this. Please like this video, but only if you liked it, or only if you hit like by mistake. All right, guys, again, thanks a lot for watching, and until next time, I will see you at the thrift store.